What the Sam Hill's going on here?
The Rewatch Podcast presents the Lois and Clark Rewatch, dedicated to the series Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman on ABC. Join us each week as we investigate the origins of the Man of Steel and uncover crime in Metropolis. Send your feedback to the Rewatch Podcast at gmail.com. Join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Rewatch Podcast or follow us on Twitter at RewatchPod.
Oh, hey! Let's get back to it.
And welcome back to the Rewatch Podcast and our Lois and Clark Rewatch. I'm Cory.
And I'm a poor excuse to bring up Lex Luthor.
Right?
I mean, really. Come on.
Alright, thank you for joining us, everyone. We're here to discuss 2 more episodes of Lois and Clark, and this week's headline reads, Ghost Stop. It's a bit cumbersome, but what can you do?
Exactly.
We are discussing Ghosts and Stop the Presses. Quick follow-up before we get into it.
Yeah, so we posted up the picture of Lois's stuff when she moved into Clark's apartment.
Yeah.
And I guess apparently several people have said, not just on the Facebook, but over on the Zoomway forums, Annie over there had mentioned that's the fish tank, I guess, Lois's fish tank. And okay, I guess so, because multiple people have said it. It's just, to me, I'm looking at that, and I'm like, I just don't see a fish tank. You know, that's the only thing it could be, I imagine.
I know, like, I remember thinking, like, I saw the fish tank, and then later, when I saw that comment, I was like, that's right, it was like a tube thing, so...
Yeah, see, I don't even... I remember the fish tank here and there, but I don't remember what it looked like. I think in my mind, like, we had a fish tank growing up, and it was very square, you know? Like, it was just a square thing. And so, like, in my mind, I was like, oh, there's a fish tank, it's square. I didn't, like, actually notice it, like, in the scene. So I'm like, all right, I guess that's the fish tank. So, cool. Mystery solved. And then the harp-like object, someone said it just looks like a harp, but it's, like, part of a cabinet or something. They said.
Like a bed dressing or cabinet or something.
Exactly.
Yeah. They also said that apparently you could see it in her apartment from time to time as well. And I was like,
right.
I don't remember it.
Yeah, and yeah, I'm not going to go back and look for it. It's not that important.
I know. We got too much other episodes to keep getting through here.
Yes.
So let's keep it rolling. The first episode today is Ghosts, written by Michael Gleason and directed by Robert Ginty, and this originally aired on November 24th of 1996.
What is all this?
Just a little morning sunshine I whipped up. Sorry about last night. Things look a lot less spooky in daylight. Sit. Eat.
Well, it all looks delicious. Ooh. Oh, it tastes great, honey. Wonderful. Wow. Must be some cookbook you're reading.
You know, I've been thinking. All that yucky stuff that happened, it could take a long time, ages, to find out who's at the bottom of trying to drive us out. We do have an interested buyer. It's not like we've put down roots here. What do you say we just sell, avoid all the aggravation, and get a good night's sleep?
Hey, that's not us. We can't be intimidated like that.
I can be intimidated if I want, and I want. In fact, I've already signed the escrow papers.
What escrow papers?
Remember that person who was interested in buying our house?
Honey, you already signed papers?
If this marriage is going to work, we're going to have to divide up the chores. So you take out the garbage, I'll sign the papers.
I don't know what's going on here, honey, but we need to talk about...
Listen, Four Eyes, don't get up from that table again until you've finished every last bite of your breakfast.
Honey, I think last night affected you a little bit more than you're willing to admit.
If you love me, you'll sign. If you want to love me, ditto. Clark, don't you dare sign.
Sign, damn it, or I'll never make you another meal.
Don't listen to me. I'm not me.
Shut up!
You shut up.
Do that again and I'll scratch my eyes out.
Lois!
No witch!
Intruder!
Wacko!
Cow!
Get out!
You get out! I was me first! Now do you believe me?
When a supposed ghost appears in the apartment above Lois and Clark's new townhome, the pair of them go to investigate. Meanwhile, a con man named Herbie is revealed to be behind the ghost, part of a plan to scare all the tenants out of the block and then sell it at a profit. Feeling pressure from a mob hitman to secure all the apartments within 2 days, including Lois and Clark's, Herbie turns to the dark arts to summon a real ghost, Katie, who was murdered there years earlier and is trapped until her killer can be found. Katie does Herbie's bidding and starts to haunt and even possess Lois, believing Herbie to be her master and a powerful mystic, and even goes so far as to kill the mob hitman when Herbie tells her he was the killer. When Katie sees she's still trapped in this plane of existence, she realizes that Herbie is just a con man who lied to her, and decides that instead of trying to find her killer, she will simply possess Lois and live her life as her, having a marriage where the husband is fully in love with the wife, something she did not have when she was alive. Clark and Lois, however, have been researching Katie's story, having recovered bits and pieces of her memories during their brief time together. Superman faces off the possessed Lois and tells her the truth about who killed her, her husband's mistress, Lila. She doesn't want to believe it, but Herbie, unable to handle Katie anymore, went and found Lila, who comes in and confesses everything, enabling Katie's soul at long last to pass over into the great beyond.
Are you here, Catherine?
What do you want?
Oh, God. A ghost. You're really a ghost.
Yes, I am.
Move out.
No. I belong here. You can see the logic. I pay the mortgage, and I'm alive. But I get that you're in terrible trouble, and I'm sorry.
Very sweet.
Move out.
Catherine, we both know why you're here.
We do?
And by here, I mean here as opposed to there. I'd like to help.
Sure. As if you care. I don't trust you or anyone with a pulse.
Life was that tough?
Well, I was beaten to death with a blunt instrument, so in that sense, yes.
I get the feeling your husband, you did everything for him. I know you're a great cook.
I was. And I cleaned, and I brought him his slippers. But he could be very mean to me. And he made me feel cheap and used and unwanted.
That's terrible. Can you tell me about it?
No. No. This morning, when I was you, your husband looked at me, us, with such love in his eyes, like I'd never seen in my whole life, not for one day as long as I lived.
Catherine.
Oh, call me Katie. All my friends call me Katie.
Okay, so let's delve deep into our investigation.
All right, so when they're sitting down there for dinner and Lois has cooked, he's eating the salad and he's like, "Hey, it's great. It's crisp and tangy," you know. And then when he goes to eat the steak, he has to actually use his super strength to cut the steak, because I guess it's supposed to be really charred, I guess. I'm not sure how they would exactly show him using his super strength. I don't know, but yeah, that's kind of funny.
I actually thought the same thing when he was trying to cut it. I'm like, dude, you're not really selling it very well. Like, you should be able to cut this like butter.
Right, exactly. The script actually did describe Herbie as Drew Carey's malicious twin. So they did pretty good. They got actually Drew Carey to play it.
There you go.
There was some extra dialogue between him and the mob guy, Mink. And he said something like, "Think, Mink, paying yourself to haul garbage, supply linen, wash windows, a veritable cornucopia of corruption." Just a little extra line that they just cut out for some reason. The music, when Herbie was staging the haunting, wasn't listed in the script, so something they added later. Lois, she wants to sign the papers to get rid of the apartment, and Clark says, "Well, no, that's not us, Lois." And so this was cut out. Lois says, "Why not? What are we, superhuman or something?" Because, she's being possessed, doesn't realize that Clark is Superman. So, she's like, "What are we, superhuman or something?" And Clark says, "Hey, no fair hitting below the cape." Yeah, it's a little amusing. Amusing line there. Katie was supposed to be dead for 5 years, not 10. And then there was a reference to Bush being president, not Reagan. So for whatever reason, they changed it. I don't know why. It's not really story changing at all. The Ouija board was supposed to actually move to yes, and then Katie was going to appear. and there was going to have some more dialogue between Lois and Katie, talking about what's so great about, what you and Clark have, and, because she's very bitter, of course, and Lois says something like, we just fit, it's like when you're born, there's someone perfect for you out there, and the tragedy is never finding that someone, and Katie gets mad because she says, well, I never got that. So just a little bit extra dialogue between the two, which was nice. Yeah. Nice little bit there. And then at the end, there was a line from Clark, that he's romantic, the romance comes back, and yeah, he's like, almost losing you makes me glad I've got you, so everyone could be like, oh, that's so sweet.
I'm so happy.
And then at the very end, when Lois pretends that she's possessed again, and then obviously she's not, that was something that was not in the script, just improvised there at the end. And actually, we have some back issues that talk about that as well.
I have noticed that she's been getting a bit, let's say, cutesy.
Yeah.
Lately.
Yes. Yeah, this reminded me of when she did the whole joke about getting amnesia again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who the heck are you and what are you doing in my house? Where's Clark? I made a lovely dinner for my man.
It's time to leave Lois's body, Katie.
I wouldn't be giving me orders, big boy. See, I can actually make Lois die by shutting down her system anytime I want to. I like her as a home, but I can find others. There's that cute what's-her-name who turns those cards on that game show. I could do that if I was still dead.
You are dead, Katie. I know Herbie betrayed you, but this just won't work.
Clark will learn to love me.
No, he won't. Clark loves Lois.
Well, then I hope he comes to her funeral!
Let me go, I swear I'll kill her.
I know who killed you, Katie. It was right there on page 16C. The one that Lois had before you blew it away. The one thing you couldn't bring yourself to tell her was that your husband was having an affair, almost from the day you two were married.
I don't want to hear anymore!
You never knew who it was, did you? And being cooped up in our kitchen wall, you didn't know that your husband remarried right after you died.
Working on the railroad.
He married her, Katie.
All the livelong day.
She was a stripper named Lila
No,
Monroe.
she wasn't a stripper. She was a struggling secretary. My husband felt sorry for her. I felt sorry for her. I even gave her cooking lessons.
Your husband begged you for a divorce, didn't he?
Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the
But you
Lord.
wouldn't give it to him because you suspected that he was in love with somebody else, so you vowed to stay married to him just to punish him.
Shaboom, shaboom, yadda yadda.
You didn't know that you were giving cooking lessons to your husband's mistress. She hated you and she wanted you out of the way. Hadn't she just left your house the night of the murder? I think she came back.
No, it's not true. I wouldn't be taken in like that, not by Lila.
All right, well, let's get into the main story. And this week's lead, ghostly guest stars. So, all right, so Lois is trying to hand it, cooking again. Clark is loving the normality of their life when suddenly their neighbor, Bertha,
Yes.
cries out in fear and just leaps out of her window to be saved by Superman. The whole plot here is that we got this guy, Herbie Stacks, who is conning people in the neighborhood to buy all their brownstones so he can sell it to the mob, I guess, right?
Yes.
It's our guest star, Drew Carey.
Of course, from the Drew Carey show.
Yes. And of course, later we are going to get his Drew Carey show co-star, Kathy Kinney.
Right, yes.
Playing Katie the Ghost.
Mm-hmm.
So these two I know. I watched the Drew Carey show back in the 90s.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Do you know if this was same time as the Drew Carey show, or...
It must have been.
I know. I meant to look into it, but I was like, is this like the Drew Carey show is going to happen? So they wanted to kind of like boost the stars of the show. So they do an episode of Lois and Clark.
Yeah, the Drew Carey show started in 95, so this is 96, so yeah. And I think Drew Carey was on ABC. So, it's shows lending each other their actors at least. So, yeah.
It's like Drew Carey had been on for a couple of years. It was probably going pretty well still. I think it lasted for a fair few seasons, so...
Yeah, it was like 9 seasons.
This one, like, coming to the end of the run for Lois and Clark. Maybe they were just trying to boost it up with one of their biggest celebrities of the time.
Could be, yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, so Drew Carey, or Herbie Stacks, he's faking these hauntings, right? And when we actually get down to, like, seeing what he does to, like, freak people out, it is super cheap and lame. Right.
Yes, very much.
Like, he scared the old woman so much that she leapt out of a window. But when we actually see it, he's got some, like, flashy light things and some black candles, and that's about it.
Yep. That's all.
It's, like, so lame.
Like, nothing that would really scare, like, it's definitely, I know Lois, I don't know, it wouldn't have scared me.
No, I would have walked in, I'd be like, who in the hell put all this Halloween crap in my house?
Exactly. It's like, am I being punked? What's going on?
Exactly. But while he's doing this, he just happens to have this, like, conjuring book of, like, how to raise the dead. He doesn't read from it at all.
No.
He just lights some candles. And somehow this resurrects the ghost of Katie, who has been stuck in the kitchen wall in limbo after she was murdered. And she calls him, like, a powerful conjurer and stuff. Like, you must be, like, so powerful. He didn't do anything. He lit a candle and had a book that he didn't read.
I know. I know. But she doesn't know because she was in the wall, She just knows, all of a sudden I'm here again. So
but
she
still,
just assumes.
that doesn't answer why she was brought back.
Right.
Like, what exactly? Is that all you had to do was light a candle in the kitchen?
Right, exactly.
But whatever. They go full poltergeist on this. Mm-hmm. Did you ever see Poltergeist, the movie?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, pots and pans floating around. The effects are probably on par, actually, with that original Poltergeist.
Right, yeah.
Like, the edges of the objects floating around were so good. But Lois witnesses this, and she freaks out. Of course, Clark doesn't see it, and yeah.
That would have freaked me out more, to see the pots floating around.
Yeah, exactly. But he comes back, and he's just like, there's some candles and some Halloween crap around, so what's wrong with you?
Right.
And Katie becomes, like, servant to Herbie.
Mm-hmm.
He's calling him master and stuff, so he's just like, oh, all right, well, I'll work on this. You go and scare the crap out of the Kent so I can go and buy the brownstone real cheap. And all the while, he's got this mob trigger man named Mink Mahoney coming after him. And I don't know, like, they kind of dropped this whole thing about how he was, like, he had the deeds to the brownstones, but he didn't actually own them, and he inadvertently sold them to the mob as, like, a rip-off scheme.
Yeah.
And actually, I laughed out loud because he goes, I didn't realize I was selling it to the mob. I thought I was selling it to, like, orphans and widows. I'm like, that's even worse.
But see, the orphans and widows aren't going to come after him.
Exactly.
The mob is.
But yeah, I don't know. I kind of like Drew Carey.
Oh yeah, I did too. In my mind, I was remembering it. I was thinking, I remember him guest starring, and I was like, yeah. But then, like, watching it, I'm like, it's actually not bad. It's actually pretty good.
Yeah, I don't know. You don't really see, like, a comedian like Drew Carey anymore. He's just got this, like, I'm not saying he's a good actor or anything.
Right.
But he's just got this, like, weirdness about him that you just go, okay, that's kind of funny, actually.
Yeah, no, he's good. I actually read his biography that he put out a long time ago. Pretty good read. He had some very emotional stuff that happened to him when he was young. From what I remember, it had to do with he was actually sexually assaulted. It affected him deeply, and it's an interesting story. His whole life, it's well worth reading. Well worth reading. There's some good comedy bits in there, but it's a very good story. That he tells, very very introspective. It's not like one of those books where, like, it's written by, like, a ghost author or whatever. That, like, it doesn't feel like their own story. Like, you could hear his voice in every page.
But of course, like, his whole big thing was the Drew Carey show.
Yeah.
And when that ended, he went hosting of Whose Line Is It Anyway? And then, of course, hosting the Price is Right.
Yeah, I actually like him on Price is Right, too. He's really good.
He's not a bad host, too. He lost a lot of weight, too, there in his later years. So, yeah, he's actually pretty good as a host of a TV show. And we're going to talk about Whose Line again in the next episode. So
Right.
But, yeah, this is where we're at. We've got Katie being sent off to try and scare Lois and Clark on Herbie's behalf. And she actually possesses Lois the next morning. Yeah. And Clark knows that something's up because she's cooking a terrific breakfast. And she signed the escrow papers and said, let's just get out of here. I thought Terry Hatcher did a great job in this possession scene.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Fighting with herself, smacking herself with a spatula and stuff.
Yes. It was comedic, but it was really good. It was very, it was dramatic as well.
And it's that thing that Kathy Kinney does throughout the episode as Katie, where, like, when Lois, like, finally confronts her, like, what does she do? She, like, summons her or something, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and she'd be asking her questions, and she's like nice, but like an evil ghost at the same time.
Yeah, there's like
that's really nice. Get out.
Exactly.
I really like that like interpretation of what a ghost would do.
Yeah, it comes up in the back issues too about Kenny there, because like on the Drew Carey show, she's kind of like just a, you know, it's like she's a very stereotype character.
Yeah, she's just like she's pissy at Drew all the time, right?
Yeah. And this kind of gives her a chance to stretch her acting chops, and they were pleased about that. I gotta agree. She's like, you know, she did a really good job.
Yeah, because she's the character that comes around. You know, she opens up to Lois and says like, I was murdered, and that's why I was in limbo, and I had a husband who, you know, he hated me because, you know, after a few years of marriage, I gained some weight, and he just used to berate me and stuff. And you feel sorry for her. You kind of you know that Herbie's taking advantage of her, saying like, you know, I totally know who killed you, and I'll reveal that to you, but you got to do this for me first. And he's like, right, that's not, you know, I feel for Katie. As we get into it, and she finally remembers how long ago she died. I think Lois and Clark dig it up. I actually thought it would be like way more than just 10 years.
Well, yeah, because they were going back and looking at like old newspapers from like, what, the 20s and stuff like that?
I think Clark says like anytime after 1898 or something.
Right, yeah.
It was just weird. And we talked in the investigation how they were just going to make it 5.
Right, yeah.
But I thought they'd at least go back to, I don't know, 60s or something. Like,
yeah, I just thought it was going to be like an old 1940s gangster type movie or show.
But then I guess they got to bring up the whole finding the murderer and stuff.
Right.
And it just, you know, jumping forward, it turns out to be her husband's mistress, who she was kind of led down the garden path about there. No, this is just like my secretary, and
exactly.
she needs some cooking lessons. Can you help her out, honey?
It actually, this story reminds me a little bit of Myrtle Beach's story, where her husband was cheating on her with a bridesmaid.
Yeah.
You know, like I wonder, like it would have been neat to sort of like make this episode and that episode like a 2-parter. You know, like have her be like a 2-part thing and stretch out the story investigation a little bit more, and then maybe do a better wedding. You know. You know, I think that might have been neat to link these together, because, like we said, the story of Myrtle Beach and everything was not exactly, you know, deep investigation, you know, drama, you know. And this has the possibility. This story has the possibility of that. So I think that would have been neat if they could have done something like that.
And actually, for once, this one actually has like a pretty good wrap up to it. You know, they don't just rush an ending out at you. It just unfolds. You know, they figure out who who her murderer was, and Herbie gets involved because he's starting to freak out now because Katie's going rogue, so he helps them out, and Katie takes control of Lois and everything, and you know the whole thing sort of gets a bit grand. You know. Going back to that poltergeist thing too, with all the apartment looking all frozen, and she's floating in on the armchair and everything. Yeah, I thought the whole story came together nicely and sort of came to a good natural conclusion this time.
Yeah, definitely. And I like that they brought back the actual woman, the stripper that that her husband had cheated on with. You know, it was like, so they bring her back into the story. It's like, okay, yeah, everything's coming together nicely, just laid out logically. Here she is. This is what happened. Now you can go. You know, now you know the story, so you can leave. Onto the great beyond or whatever. And
I loved all the effects too, actually. I thought they looked really good, like the ghost effects and her sort of, you know, where she's possessing Lois and sort of phasing in and out. And then the sets, like I said, like the frozen apartment and everything, I thought it all looked really nice.
Yeah, it was good.
The one thing I thought was a little forced was when Superman has to show up at the end. Because, you know, it's got to be Superman.
Right, yeah.
It could have easily just have been Clark. Why can't this just be a Lois and Clark episode? Like, why did he have to soups out in order to, you know, get this thing to finish at the end?
Yeah, it would have been fine with just Clark, because, you know, she knows that Superman, or she knows that Katie knows that Lois and Clark, you know, have this whole connection and everything. And presumably, she didn't even know who Superman was when he showed up. That's right. So, you know, it's like it would have made probably a better impact to have Clark do it, but I'm sure that came from like the network saying we want Superman in every episode, no matter what.
We're gonna have Superman in here.
Exactly. So I'm sure that's where that came from.
And then the actual like ending part of it too is that Lois gets to keep all these memories of being a good cook.
Yes.
Which is You know, I want to say it's a little passé for this show that, you know, the dutiful housewife needs to know how to cook and that kind of thing. You know, it doesn't quite fit with that independent woman of the 90s feel that we've always gone with for Lois Lane.
I think the thing is that we saw in like the first season that like her whole refrigerator was just like frozen foods and things like that. So I think the point of this is saying, well, now that she's married, she kind of wants to, you know, she wants to do it all. She wants to be the professional, you know, the independent professional, and she also wants to be, you know, the one who cooks for her husband, because that's what you do, you know, you make a nice meal for your spouse, you know. So I think that's what it is. And
that's pretty much the only thing that I picked up in the way of bylines for this one was Lois's desire to want to learn how to cook.
Right.
And I just thought it was funny that her first step in really taking it seriously in learning how to cook is to approach an extremely famous French chef.
Right. Yes. Bound to go wrong.
You couldn't just enroll in a community college course or
right.
Find just like any good cook out there. No, you got to attract the most famous of French cooks.
Or I mean, just like go to the bookstore and get Cooking for Dummies, you know. Or something. That's what I had. That's what I got when I first moved out on my own. I bought that book.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, and I don't think Clark cares. Like, he doesn't really care if she can cook or not, because like, remember, he's just used to taking a piece of meat out of the freezer and just, you know, zapping it with his heat vision. You know, so he's not exactly a great connoisseur either. So it's like she doesn't have to be a great cook. You know, really, they'd be fine.
But he does get a big smile on his face when he's eating that bacon that morning. Oh my God!
Well, come on,
this is delicious, honey.
Everyone should get a big smile on their face when you're eating bacon, unless you're vegan, and then maybe not a smile. But
we'll cook you up some bacon.
There you go. Exactly.
But yeah, you know, when we talked about what episodes were going to be next week in our last episode, and I was thinking, they're going to do an episode with real ghosts. This one, surprisingly, I really enjoyed it. I loved Drew Carey, I loved Kathy Kinney, and I thought the story was great.
Yeah, I liked it.
Shall we get into this week's quote for then?
All right.
What's everybody standing around for? This is a newspaper, not happy hour at Buckingham Palace. What are we here, the Daily Planet, or second stringers from the Weehawken Gazette?
Am I making myself perfectly clear?
Okay, so we're down again. No votes. I was right. Come on, people. It's like 3 weeks in a row. We had no votes, then we had like 1 vote and no votes again. You gotta vote, people.
You gotta vote.
Yes. It's Trump's America. Come on.
I know. Exactly. Come on.
All right. Well, executive decision. I picked one out. So cue the music.
Vincent runs up to Kermit the Frog.
KTF. You're okay, right? With that hick and everything.
Why does everyone keep asking me that? Yes, of course.
Okay, good. Because I need your help, right? You see Sean over there by the vending machines? He works in research. We went out once. I didn't want to go out twice. Now every time I turn around, there he is. Did you ever see Fatal Attraction?
Come on, Vincent. Him? He looks so sweet.
No, there's something seriously wrong with him. I got dead roses delivered to my place, okay? Maybe you could just pretend to order me to do something. He'll get the hint and go away.
I gotta go. Sorry. Yay!
And see.
I was really biting my tongue.
That was good. I like that.
Well, let's get into the second episode discussion today. The episode is Stop the Presses, written by Brad Kern and directed by Peter Ellis. And this originally aired December 8th of 1996.
Hey, guys.
Hey, Ralph.
Hey, Ralph.
You hear what happened?
Perry just got promoted.
Get out.
Swear to God. Corporate job. He's upstairs right now getting his stripes.
You're kidding. When did that happen?
Oh, this afternoon, right after they let old man Rosen go. Circulation problems, apparently.
Heart?
No, subscriptions are down 8%.
Hey, well, great for Perry. He deserves it.
Yeah. Who's gonna replace him?
Scuttlebutt is it's gonna be one of you two.
One of us?
Uh-huh.
But we're not even department heads. How is that possible?
Believe me, I've been asking myself the same... I mean, I think either one of you would make an excellent choice. Should be interesting on the marriage, though.
With Perry receiving a promotion upstairs, which includes better pay and less hours, Lois has chosen to replace him as editor. While at first everything seems fine, sparks begin to fly between Lois and Clark as she kills his story about a missing rich kid turned evil hacker due to lack of sources and proof. Lois instead pairs Clark up with another reporter named Ralph, who supposedly has a brewing story about an affair between the mayor and a call girl and possible deeper political corruption. Meanwhile, Ethan Press, the rich kid/hacker, has been kidnapped by his brother, Eric Press, to commit acts of sabotage that will be used as tests to determine the nature of Superman's powers and strength, eventually enabling Eric to discover a way to kill him as a tribute to his hero, Lex Luthor. Being unable to prove a connection between the presses and the various incidents, Clark and Lois have their first big fight as she orders him off the story, taking research that Jimmy was doing for him. When another incident occurs involving a nuclear missile, Superman rushes off to stop it and faces the presses, who have a modified version of Lex Luthor's quantum gun, and finds himself being torn apart while trapped inside the missile silo away from the sun, which usually repairs his cells. Using his heat vision, he manages to open the silo and regain his strength, while Lois, who took the time to look at the research she took, finds a link to the presses and arrives to save him. Together, the two share a byline covering the story of the presses while Perry comes back to work as editor, not caring for the lazy life of upper management.
You kidnapped me, Ethan.
So?
So I'm your brother. You can't kidnap your brother.
I always used to tie you up when we were little kids. What's the difference?
The difference is you're forcing me to help you kill Superman.
Need I remind you, little brother, that he silenced the single greatest voice who ever spoke? Our childhood hero, Lex Luthor?
Lex died like a year ago. You're just getting around to this now?
It took me that long to find Superman's Achilles heel, the chink in his impenetrable armor. And now, thanks to you, you know what that is.
Wait a minute, I only hacked into Starlab's computer as a prank.
Nevertheless, you got the key to Superman's confidential medical files, and with them, we know the key to his powers lies in his vast energy reserves. What did you say? He's like a one big battery, right?
Yes, but
So, all we have to do is find a way to drain that battery and make him vulnerable. And then, when Superman is dead, we won't be remembered as some spoiled little rich kids. Like Brutus and Booth and Oswald before us, the names Ethan and Eric Press will live in infamy.
You're sick.
I take after Dad's side.
You don't have a chance, Ethan. Even a blast that big hardly put a dent in Superman's bioelectric aura.
So, it did affect him?
Barely. Look. This monitor shows his bioelectrical strength. It dipped for like a nanosecond. It's gonna take a radical force to really drain him. And even then, you're gonna need an incredibly powerful weapon to take advantage of it before he rejuvenates.
No problem. You tapped into the Pentagon once. You can do it again.
All right, so we have a reasonable amount in the investigation here.
Yeah, so in the beginning, when Perry's telling him about the promotion, he's like, my head feels like it's a 45 spinning. Jimmy was supposed to ask, what's that? You know, which is, it's a funny line, but that's so it's overdone, that joke.
They still had vinyl in the mid-90s.
They did, yeah. There was an extra shot, or there was supposed to be an extra shot in the script of Superman flying two scientists out of the building. Probably just, budget, reasons they couldn't do it. Clark coming home was a scene that they cut out. So he's coming home while Lois is rushing out because apparently the lead that they were going to use for the newspaper fell apart. So it's kind of like a role reversal where he's always rushing off. Now she's rushing off and she kind of just, she's like, you look pale. Are you okay? He's like, well, I just got blown up. She goes, all right, well, we'll talk about that later. And she kisses him and like, bye. And like, she's gone. And Clark's just sort of left there, alone, which is, it's a neat role reversal, so I like that. Probably cut for timing reasons, I imagine. When Clark says, my parents are coming, Lois was supposed to have a line that says, well, I'll cook, don't worry. When Ralph gets the phone call, supposedly about the documents or whatever, Clark actually uses his super hearing, so we see the effect, the camera zooms in, we see his super hearing go into effect there, and he actually hears Ralph's mom first, rather than the way they did it in the actual aired version. Let's see, Lois confronts Clark and says, if Perry pulled you off this story, you would have stayed off of it. You wouldn't have gone back to it. And Clark's like, what's that supposed to mean? And just more headbutting between the two. Probably cut because they have the other storyline with the presses. So they cut, we'll talk about that. Now, this was interesting because I was thinking that this was going to actually be in the script. I was thinking in my head, this is how it's supposed to go. This is so stereotypical. After Eric pulls the trigger on Ethan, and or did I got it back? No, that's right. Yeah. After he pulls the trigger and tries to kill him, and of course the gun's been disarmed, Ethan in the aired version doesn't really say too much about it, but in the script he was going to say this whole big speech like, "You did it. I knew you could do it. You turned an emotional corner. Now you and I, you're my equal. We can continue our historic adventure together as we get our revenge on Superman." So it was like a big speech, which I expected in the episode, but they didn't do for some reason. But it was in the original script.
Well, and at the same time, like, Ethan's not going to join his brother. I mean, he did just try to kill him so he wouldn't have to do it. So.
Right. And so then at the end of that speech, though, he looks at his brother and he's like, "But try that again and I'll rip you to shreds and turn you to shark bait." So, it makes it clear that he's a little weird, a little psycho. And then finally, and they cut this out, obviously, because when they're defeating Superman with the gun, Eric starts to stand up to his brother and says, "We can't let Superman die. We have to help him." And that was the end of that part there. It's like, it doesn't really make sense, Like, he doesn't really stand up to Eric at all in the whole episode, but they had this one line in there, I guess to sort of exonerate him a little bit, maybe to show that he's not the one behind it all. I don't know.
Of course he wants to kill him. Like,
right.
If he just hurt him and then let him get better, then
right.
What would be the point of all this?
Exactly.
But anyway.
I can't believe we're fighting like this. I mean, it just seems like it came out of nowhere.
I remember your mother's and my first fight. Total sucker punch. I never saw it coming. Although I forget what it was all about now.
He bought a new truck without even talking to me about it first. We were newlyweds, and he was used to still making all his decisions alone.
And you put a stop to that?
Yes, but we didn't talk to each other for 3 days.
Worst 5 days of my life. Believe me, felt more like 55.
That's how I feel. But what am I supposed to do? I mean, I know Lois is under a lot of pressure right now, and she needs my support. But in order for me to give it to her, I have to ignore my own gut instincts, and I don't know if I can do that. I don't know that I should.
Well, I don't think I can help you out there, son. But part of what you're going through is just being married. Learning how to deal with each other's shifting lives.
The problem is that right now, it feels like they're shifting apart. 2 days ago, we were a team, doing everything together, and...
Now we're apart. And it hurts me, too. But what am I supposed to do? Not do the best job I can?
Of course not. Just because you're not partners right now doesn't mean you're not still a team. That's what makes you two so special together. You just need to give yourself some time. It's a big change for both of you.
Look, son, can't expect to figure it out overnight.
No chance of that happening.
Well, not if you don't talk to each other, there isn't. And with everything the two of you have been through, you should know that better than anybody.
You're right.
You're right. Thanks for the coffee.
Okay, so let's get into the main story. And the lead here, rich kids, poor choices. They pretty much, get straight into, what this story is going to be, but it's a bit of, a misdirect here at the beginning. Because it's a rich kid went missing.
Mm-hmm.
And he's one of those typical rich kid a-holes named Eric Press. And he's known for, computer hacking skills and stuff because he's, bored rich kid. So right. He likes to strike back at society or do whatever. That's, our misdirect. The whole thing at the beginning is actually to set up that Perry has been promoted. He's going upstairs. And you can tell from the get-go that he doesn't really want to do this. He's packing up his box and he's making it sound like he wants to go. Perry does not want to leave. Being the editor.
Exactly. Yep.
He loves it.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And he promotes Lois to editor. I think we've talked about this before, but Lois in the comics and within Superman lore has ran the Daily Planet before, right?
Yeah, in the comics. I'm trying to remember. We talked about it when it was the old TV show, the George Reeves show. And even though Clark was the new guy, it was the 50s when that show was out. So to put Lois in charge in the TV show would have been, just counterculture at the time. So they put Clark in charge of the Daily Planet in the in the TV show, at least. Now, I'm not sure in the comics. I don't remember if she's ever ran the Daily Planet, or if even Clark has. I don't remember now. It's possible. It's probably very possible that it happened.
Yeah, but pretty much it's, they have a conversation about how they're not going to let this disrupt their lives at all.
Right, yeah.
And the overarching thing is that, it is going to disrupt their lives.
Yes.
Lois is in charge, and now they're very busy, and he has to answer to her as well.
Mm-hmm.
And she doesn't want to appear that she's favoring him just because he's her husband. So it's going to play out. It plays out the way you would expect it to play out. There's nothing
pretty much.
They don't do too much new with that kind of dynamic.
Right, exactly.
So we get into what the deal is. As I said, the misdirect is that Eric isn't the one who's doing this.
Right.
He's actually been kidnapped by his older brother, Ethan Press.
Yes.
Played by Chip Eston from Whose Line Is It Anyway? Is he from anything else besides Whose Line Is It Anyway?
I looked him up because I knew he was from Whose Line Is It Anyway? I'm watching it and I'm like, man, it looks like it's that guy, isn't it? From, the Whose Line Is It? Which, of course, hosted by Drew Carey. And in his actual, IMDb, he's not named Chip. He's named Charles. So Chip is his nickname. But I don't really know him from anything else. He's been in a bunch of different things. I guess he was in that new show, Nashville, which I've never watched, but he was in there as a recurring character for the whole thing. So he's pretty big in that. But, most of the other stuff, he's been in, guest stars, recurring character for a couple episodes here and there. But yeah, nothing major really that I see.
And as you brought up in your opening line, they invoke the name of Lex Luthor as their motivation behind this. They idolize the man, and he only died a year ago in prison, apparently, right. in the drop line. But yeah, they want to get even. Well, Ethan wants to get even. So yeah, they even replay a scene that Lex had done before with the quantum disruptor, and he goes and finds another shifty agent of some kind.
I know. I wish they had brought back the original agent. That would have been great.
That guy was good.
Yeah.
But this time it's the quantum disruptor's big brother, the quantum disbander.
Yes.
So, yeah, I don't like the motivations of these guys, really.
It's because it's the real story here. The real story is the relationship between Lois and Clark here. The dynamic has changed. She's the boss now. They could have really explored this, and this came up in the back issues as well. But I was thinking that these two kids, they're nothing. It's a villain of the week. Like you said, the motivation is just ridiculous. They could have done away with that and still had a really good episode focusing on this whole change dynamic between the two, Lois and Clark. I wish they had done that. I wish they had focused more on that. It's not bad, what they did, but it could have been so much more. Which I think we've said a lot with the last couple episodes. We've said different variations of that. We wish they had done this. It could have been more,
I think it's supposed to be a juxtaposition of, one having more power than the other. Clark is, to get a bit traditional here, he's the man. He's also Superman. Yeah. And suddenly his wife is his boss, and, she's got a bit more power than him, so to speak. And then you got these brothers, one brother lording power over the other. So it's just a poor juxtaposition.
Right.
It was all instigated because, Eric is still a bored rich kid who hacks. Yeah. And he accidentally came upon Superman's confidential records at Star Labs. So they have an understanding of his aura and how he uses the sun to regenerate his power. That's where the light bulb went off for Ethan. If they can drain his power, and they do several tests by making nuclear reactors overheat and whatnot, and they slowly figure out that if they can get him into a confined space with no sun, use the quantum disbander to lower his power, they can get to the level where they can kill him. Ultimately it should be epic, but because I don't really like these two, I'm quite so-so in the whole thing.
Yeah, bringing him into the silo. It's Well, yeah, you could get him in the silo and try to depower him, but I mean, like, the silo is very. It's not like deep underground away from the sun. The sun's right there on the other side of the silo. You know, like, all he would really have to do is just like use his super strength and just like punch through a wall, even. You know, and boom, the sun comes in and he'd be fine. So it was a bit. Like they could have done more if they wanted to really like depower him and get him away from the sun. Do something underground or something.
Exactly. And the lead up to this, of course, is that power dynamic between Lois and Clark. Because she's killing a story which is directly linked to these brothers.
Yes.
And she's going on about how you don't have proof, and he's saying, you're a reporter, you know, it takes time to sort of develop and uncover and all that stuff. And she, I think, being a bit pig-headed in the whole, you know, I don't want to seem to be favoring you thing, teams in with Ralph. And Ralph has this story about the mayor having an affair, but it's all just blowing smoke out of his butt.
I'm glad you said that, because I was thinking, you know, like, if Lois had been on this story with Clark and Perry was the editor, he wouldn't have killed it. He would have let them, you know, do research into this and figure it out. I don't think he would have killed it. I think she killed it just because she doesn't want to seem like she's favoring him. And since he doesn't have concrete proof yet, you know, it's like, well, if I let you do this, it's going to seem like I'm just letting you do it because you're my husband. So I think she was just, I think she was a little aggressive that way. Perry would have been like, yeah, it's fine. Get the story. And plus, given the fact that Superman is out there being tested, they don't realize it's being tested, but these things are seemingly related. You know, they would have really worked to find a connection. And like Lois would have been like, yeah, there's a connection. Obviously, something's going on here. I didn't like that she just immediately took him off of it. I understand why, for the sake of the story and the tension and everything, but it just felt like the real editor, Perry, would not have taken them off of that story.
Yeah, and it's like you said, like Lois says, you know, if Perry was still in charge, you would do what Perry says.
Right.
And I actually kind of had a laugh at that, because just in the last episode, when they were trying to research like the murder that happened in their house,
right,
they just dropped everything they were doing. Like Perry was like, hey, there's my seasoned reporter. How's that story coming? Oh no, you're reading a book about raising dead people.
Exactly.
So I'm like, no, they wouldn't do what Perry says. They're gonna do whatever they want. And we also get another classic Martha Jonathan visiting Lois and Clark separately, in that, you know, nice little cut scenes, you know, where sentences seem to be finished by the other person. And Martha says, like, we had our first fight, and it was 3 days. And Jonathan says, oh, it was the longest 5 days of my life.
Exactly.
I love those scenes.
Yeah. It was good. It was very good. I'm glad that they're still around, you know, that they weren't written out, you know, as things progress through the seasons. I'm glad they're still there.
Yeah, they're always there with some good advice, you know, just telling the story of their first fight. And Jonathan bought a car or something, so he was sort of used to doing his own thing, not used to being married. And, you know, sort of just, letting these two newlyweds, you know, steer them down the right path. And then, it just, you know, it's your typical ending. It comes to a head. These guys think they can take out Superman. Absolutely not. Superman actually does manage to save himself.
Right, but Lois found the, you know, information that he had and put it all together, because she's a reporter, and tries to go and save him, but of course, like you said, he'd already saved himself. But it was nice, you know, it's like a nice come together, like, all right, you were right, you know, here I am admitting that. And so it was a good little ending there.
It was a bit weird though, because I mean, they don't go like full-on lovebirds or something at the end there, but they do have a bit of a conversation that makes you believe that the two of them know each other intimately. Yeah. Meanwhile, Ethan and Eric are like tied up right next to him. Like, exactly. He's like, you maybe want to have this conversation away from the bad guys who don't know your secret identity, maybe.
Exactly.
I actually kind of love the ending with Perry coming down and trying to make a deal with Lois.
Yeah, he's such a good actor too. Like you can see he's so disappointed when Lois is like, "Well, I already have a partner." He's like, "Oh, yeah, of course, Lois, of course." Such a good actor. I like you could see the sadness, you know, in his face.
Although, you know, he said it at the beginning that Lois's appointment as editor was only temporary.
Right.
So when he would come back down groveling and saying, like, maybe we could do it together. We could be co-editors.
Right.
I'm like, no, I think you have the power to just come back down and go, okay, so after 3 days, I'm just going to stay editor, Lois. So go back to your desk. And then the whole thing about swooping Lois into bed. These two always seem to end the episode having a glass of wine, having a chat. And then this time, he, like, super speeds her away into bed. It's sappy, but I kind of like it.
Yeah, but that's what people wanted. They wanted the romance, They wanted the romance. So we got it.
But yeah, I really like that first episode. This one, I'm back to a bit.
Yeah, like I said, if they had gotten rid of the presses, and just focused on their whole relationship, I think it would have been a much better episode.
And then a couple of bylines. Jimmy's little minor byline about the Psycho X.
That's just weird.
I know.
It was weird.
I don't know how that fit in the episode.
Because it's never going to come back again. I don't remember this ever coming back again to play any part in anything whatsoever. So I don't even know why it's in this episode. It's strange.
Yeah, it's like one of the producer's brothers married somebody and then got this woman a bit part as like the Psycho X in this episode for some reason.
Yeah. I'm like, why? I didn't understand that at all.
But whatever. And then the other one about Ralph. I'm surprised that Ralph's back.
Right.
We were talking about it when we first saw him. Like, who is this guy and is he ever going to be around again? He is back, but he's a terrible reporter who just lies. Yeah. Like, why is he employed at the Daily Planet if he's that terrible of a reporter?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, he's good for comedy relief and all that, but yeah.
Yeah, he just makes up stuff. Pretends he's talking to leads on the phone and stuff, but it's his mother.
Right.
Like, jeez. To hell with that guy.
So I just real quick, I looked up that girl who played Jimmy's Psycho X. It was Darlene, right? Was that her name?
I think so.
She really hasn't done too much at all. Like, she has like 10 credits to her name. The first one is Lois and Clark. And then after that, she did like an episode of like Chicago Suns, Magnificent Seven, Wasteland, all these things like one episode. And then I guess some movie called Descent into Darkness where she played a nurse, and Pure Country 2, The Gift. All little bit parts here and there, but that's it. So she hasn't done too much, so I don't know what her whole story is, actually.
Yeah, she's a bit player for a while and disappeared into the ether, I guess.
Yeah.
Lois, you go ahead. All right, look, I'm not going to beat around the bush. Truth is, I missed the newsroom something awful. I guess after being down here for some 30-odd years, it's just part of me.
Perry.
Now, I don't want you to think I'm asking you to step aside, because I'm not. It's just that after spending the last few days upstairs with those fancy suits and sipping lattes and taking lunches, well, it's just not my style.
Chief, you should let Lois...
Now, here's what I propose. Lois, you and I both run the newspaper together. Partners, editors-in-chief. What do you say?
I'd say I already have a partner.
Yeah. Well, I guess it was worth a shot.
You don't understand. I don't want to be editor anymore.
No, I understand. It's just, What?
You can have your old job back, as long as I can have mine, because I miss being a reporter as much as you miss being in the newsroom.
Lois, are you sure?
Positive.
You got a deal. Here.
Lois, I got a killer scoop. Guaranteed headline.
Oh, don't tell me. Tell Perry. He's the editor.
All right, well, let's check out the back issues.
So for the Drew Carey episode, they said, you know what, this was not bad at all. It was promoted in the commercials as a wacky episode, but they said Kathy Kinney showed real acting chops as opposed to her work in the Drew Carey show. And the criminals, like the mob guy, was really kind of down to earth. He wasn't like over the top or anything. It was realistic, so they liked that. They did say, I mentioned this, that last scene where she acts like she's being possessed, they said it sounded like it was like totally improvised, because as she does that at the end, she's like, oh, I'm sorry, did I get egg on you? Let me wipe that off.
Yeah, I did notice that.
And you hear Dean Cain laughing, but it didn't sound like he was mic'd up. It sounded like it was coming from a different mic. So it was nice that they left that in there because it made him sound like a real couple.
Yeah, they're just having some fun, and they kind of caught that on tape and said, oh, okay, it's a great way to end it.
Yeah, exactly. So it was kind of nice. And then someone was wondering where Star was. Remember Star?
Oh, man.
Because that's the first person Lois would have gone to if this had happened. So it's too bad that she was written out so long ago.
I keep meaning to bring up Star as well. Like, I think about it during the episode and then immediately just forget it again.
Right. Yeah. It would have been good to have her in this one. Like I said, this episode, someone said, would have been better without the presses. Focus on the relationship angle. Add more Ralph. But the weak point was the villain. They did say it was a nice touch that they mentioned Lex and had that revamped gun, but it was basically a very uneven episode. You know, and they were like, "What?" And like we said, what was up with that, blonde girl that Jimmy was dating? Doesn't continue on. They did think that the breakfast scene was good, the silent breakfast scene, because it felt real. They were having a fight, and there was no attempt to put a lot of dialogue in there, and it was just, they played it out like a real couple would fight. They just give each other the silent treatment.
Yeah. Just let them be mad. Let
exactly.
that play.
They did say that, see, this is why they said it was just, there could have been so much more, because the tension between Lois and Clark was not resolved by Lois and Clark. The tension was resolved by Lois and Superman because there was a threat to Superman. So, yeah, I know they're the same person, but they would have liked to have seen the couple fix this fight on their own without having Superman be the reason everything comes together, which I agree. That's, that's what I'm saying. Like, they could have done much more with that angle, with that storyline, with just the two.
Yeah, you're right. If they really drove that home, almost as if, like, she takes Clark for granted, or they take each other for granted. You know? And then suddenly there is a real threat against his life.
Right, yeah.
And she suddenly realizes, man, he's not invulnerable,
Right.
People can get to him.
So there's more they could have done. Overall, like I said, it's okay. It's just not great. Someone did say, well, we don't have to worry. We do have a season 5 renewal for Lois and Clark, which obviously we know did not happen. But they at this point, they had already heard about it being renewed for a 5th season. But it needs to get better than this episode, these type of episodes. They said, what did we learn? Did we learn that Lois and Clark work better together as partners when they talk things out? Well, we knew that already. We knew that 2 seasons ago. We need, to move this relationship forward is what they're hoping for.
Yeah, bigger stakes.
Yes.
Yeah, no, all good points. That's actually a lot more insightful than I thought about it. But when people bring it up, you're like, yeah, damn right.
Exactly. Yeah, that's why I was like, yeah, they got a good point.
All right, so our next issue, we will be discussing 'Twas the Night Before Miximus and Lethal Weapon. Now, I'm going to venture a guess here and say this is the Mr. Mix's Piddler episode.
Exactly.
Mixed with the Christmas episode.
Yep. Very good guess. Yeah.
This should be interesting.
A bit of guest star be happening in this next episode as well.
Oh, cool.
So you haven't seen like the preview or anything for it yet, or anything like that?
No, I have no idea what's coming. I'm interested to see how they're going to bring this character into the world of Lois and Clark.
It makes me think of another this episode, the Mixie Has Piddler episode, makes me think of I won't say it. We'll talk about it next week.
Okay, yeah.
I'll save that comment for next week.
But no, I think mixing it with a Christmas episode might soften it out a bit. But we'll just have to wait and see.
And then we've got Lethal Weapon, which my first thought was, is Dan Scardino coming back?
Hey, we know Clark's a big fan of the Lethal Weapon films. We got that drop line in season 1. Maybe Mel Gibson will guest star.
Right.
Or Danny Glover.
I'm trying to think what this could be. I'm imagining maybe it's another villain of the week who has a special weapon, that could kill him.
Yeah, but every bad guy is lethal in some way.
There was an episode. It's another android, I think. There's like an android episode who attacks Superman. So maybe that's this one.
That could make sense. Or maybe Superman is the weapon or something. Like some sort of like weird role reversal or something.
Yeah. Well, whatever it is, we'll find out next week, because that's it for this issue of the Rewatch Podcast. Keep up with listener interaction by liking our Facebook page at facebook.com/Rewatch Podcast or facebook.com/Lois and Clark Rewatch, and follow the show on Twitter at Rewatch Pod. You can also visit our webpage at Rewatch rewatchpodcast.podomatic.com, which has links to some of our favorite sites there, such as the forums at zoomway.net, folc.wiki.com, and the supermanhomepage.com. And don't forget, we've also got links to our archive of film rewatch episodes.
And remember, you can always write us an email or record a voice message. Send it to the rewatchpodcast@gmail.com. And also, if you've enjoyed the show, please consider giving us a rate and review on iTunes. That's very helpful. And you can help support the Rewatch Podcast by heading to patreon.com/rewatchpodcast and make a monthly contribution as little as $1. And thank you to all our patrons. And we're up on YouTube. You can find every single episode that we've ever done there. So search Rewatch Podcast and subscribe today. All right. So, as always, thank you for joining me for these 2 episodes, Tom.
Yep.
And I will just say, until next time, don't forget to lock your doors at night.
We gotta fly.
The Rewatch Podcast is not associated with Warner Brothers Television, ABC, Gangbuster Films Incorporated, or Roundelay Productions.
Don't believe everything you see on TV.
The use of any and all copyrighted material is only for parody, news analysis, critique, or educational purposes as provided in United States Code Title 17, aka Fair Use.
Let's get legal on this.
Music provided by Kevin McCloud at incompetech.com.
Great shades of Elvis.
Copyright 2017, The Rewatch Podcast.
Where are your beepers? We'll be in touch.